Hello. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all well. I'd like to share a story with you today for Assembly. It made me think a lot. It made me think about the world we live in. And it made me think about the power of how working together we can do great things. We can also do not so great things, but we need to think about what we're doing. So here goes the story. You can see it here. It's called The Last Tree by Emily Hayworth Booth. And Emily wrote it and illustrated it. And it's got some great illustrations, as you will see. Here's the first page, The Last Tree. You can see some leaves. I wonder what The Last Tree's about. I think you might be able to guess. Right, okay, I'm going to get myself out of the way because I'm a bit big at the moment. I'm going to shrink myself down and let's get on with the story. The desert was too hot, the valley was too wet, and the mountain was too windy. Nowhere was quite right until they saw the first tree. And came to the forest, where dappled light fell through the leaves and gentle breeze twisted between the branches. All summer long the friends lived and played among the trees and slept on the mossy floor. When winter came, the breeze turned colder, and they took a few branches for firewood. But where they'd taken branches, the rain came through and put out their fires. So they chopped down a few whole trees to build shelters, but that made the forest colder still. So they cut down some more trees to turn their shelters into cabins. Soon it seemed that the more wood they took, the more they needed to take. When the summer returned, the sun blazed down, and there weren't enough trees left to shade them. Yet a few more branches made very pleasant porches. Before long, the people became skilled carpenters, and all summer they worked hard to make the perfect village. And you can see they've got porches for shade, ladders for climbing up to build the porches, laundry poles, laundry pole ornaments, carpentry tables, chairs for sitting under porches, rulers for making things straight, and a wooden sculpture to look at. So they've been busy, haven't they, working together, making this village. But when the autumn came, winds came through again. They whipped through the spaces where the trees used to be, throwing all the villagers' fine work into disarray. And so, because the forest is gone, they haven't got protection from the wind. You can see it causing chaos. They needed a new plan, one that would solve all their problems forever. Let's tie everything down with rope. We could catch the wind in big bottles. That'll never work. A barrier's the answer. Well, we have to do something. We need more wood. So they cut down all the trees still standing. All that is except one last tree that was no good to anyone. What about that one? Oh, leave it. It's really more of a weed. Oh, a bit big. And with the wood, they built a wall. What fun they had working together to build it. And now, proud and... Sorry, I can't read that. What fun they had working together to build it. And how proud they were when it was all done. Stillness descended like a blanket. The clothes stayed put, the plants grew tall and straight. At last, the place was really just right. But with nothing to look at but the wall, something happened to the people too. In time they started to forget their games and songs, and soon the happy village had grown cold and hard for now. The villagers had walls around their hearts. I saw the neighbours looking at me strangely yesterday. I think they're jealous of our cabbages. They were peeking through our window, I swear it. Perhaps we ought to reinforce the door. Fence in the garden. Board up the windows. It had taken all the wood they had to build the wall. And so before long, each parent, thinking they were being clever, said the same thing to their child. Remember the last tree, the one like a weed, tiny and weak. We need to stay inside and guard the house. So will you take this axe? Go out beyond the wall and see if it's still there. Chop it down and bring us back the wood. Get it before the neighbours do so. But when the children, creeping out beyond the wall, found each other by the little tree, they soon forgot their task. They laughed and ran and played and sang and tended the tree and gathered its seeds. Each day they visited, it grew a little taller and more proud, until they knew that they would never cut down the last tree. Meanwhile, each night the parents asked their children why they hadn't brought back wood. But when the children talked about the tree and how it made them feel, their parents wouldn't come outside to look or even listen. That's when the children knew what they had to do. They started to bring home wood, but it wasn't from the last tree. And when it was delivered plank by plank, their parents didn't question why it was so long and straight and smooth. All they said was, "Oh, this will do just fine. Oh, and oh, that's good." They boarded and banged and fenced and reinforced and never once looked up or out. It was only when the wind rushed into the village, rattling their boarded-up windows and knocking down their new fences, that they ran outside and saw that despite all their new wood, the last tree still stood. In bright daylight, they remembered that they were old friends, not enemies. And they heard their children playing in the tree, saw how the cool wind twisted gently through its branches and the sunshine fell in dappled shadows to the ground beneath. They were reminded of how things used to be. Then all at once they understood what they had done and how, perhaps, they could begin again. And we could see their village. What fun they had taking down the wall, and how proud they were when it was done. As they planted seeds and tended the saplings, they talked and sang, and the children grew a forest, a new forest, which grew with them. And the last tree became the first. And that's the end of the story. What a lovely story. Nice positive story. It's all about, obviously, it's about what people need. And they start off and they're working together and it's brilliant and it's all going really well. But then they forget that connection that they had with nature. And that connection with nature is really important. And that's one of the things that scientists and researchers are finding out about how important it is that we connect with nature and how good it is for our well-being and our brains to actually go out into nature. So that's one of the reasons why we use our conservation area and why we have that, is so that you can go out and you can get into a little bit of nature. It's not much, I know, but we've got trees and you can touch a tree and you can hug a tree and you can do those things which are actually really good for your mental health, keeping you well and your well-being. So, and by the end of the story, they were working together again and they were taking down that wall, and they were tending to the forest and making themselves a lot happier. And also, they, by living in the forest, things will be better for them because the wind won't be as bad. It won't blow things away. It will shelter them from the weather, from the rain and the snow. They can still use the wood, but they just need to collect the wood that falls to the ground. And they also need to remember that if they chop a tree down, then they need to plant 2 more. It's always best to plant 2 more if you chop 1 down, because they take so long to grow. Okay, so that's my assembly for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday for Celebration Assembly. Take lots of care and see you all soon. Bye, 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 bye.